Hello, and I'm here. Right, anyone here like Street Fighter? Question. Now, I've been watching Manga UK recently. They're on YouTube. They're a YouTube group, and they've got two Street Fighter films. And I'm worried about the battery camera, but that's a different story. Street Fighter Alpha, which is a good Street Fighter film, and was an enjoyable ride, and had such good voice actors as Steve Bloom as Ken. He was great. And the terrible Street Fighter Generations, which I'm gonna review right now, and I hope this camera doesn't die while I'm reviewing it. Now, Street Fighter Generations, I thought it was gonna be a sequel to Street Fighter Alpha, but no, it's a prequel. So our story begins where Goki, and I'm thinking, who on earth is Goki? Well, Goki, it turns out, in the English version, his name is Akuma, right? And what he does is, it shows you him killing his former master, basically, and then going to follow his own path. Okay, we're good. Right, then and for the first 9 minutes, okay, actually I know that's a lie. For the first 9 minutes, we'll follow his perspective, and we'll see what his life was like under the tutelage of Goken. And he basically, like I said, just says he wants to follow his own path. Then things take a turn for the worst after 9 minutes, because the actress they had was good. I believe Goken, the guy who tried to teach out Goki everything he knew, he had a good voice actor who came back to play Pyron in Darkstalkers, and plays Seth Killigan in Street Fighter 4. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. So, yeah, we get past all the good actors 9 minutes in, and then we get, it takes me to the future, but it doesn't tell where we're in the future. I mean, it could have done with, several years later sort of thing. And we follow Ryu, and by the way, spoilers, but not really spoilers, because they tell you this at the beginning, but, Ryu is Akuma's son in Street Fighter Alpha Generations. They clarify that. But problem with that is, since it's a prequel in Street Fighter Alpha, it's very vague whether he's his son or not. So they've already made a mistake there in the first couple of minutes. But that's not the biggest mistake they made. The next mistake they made is the voice acting. My god. Anyway. Right, so we get Ryu's voice. It was a bit some of the lines he says are a bit off and not filled with any emotions. Especially when he has to be sad later on. That's terrible. But in the first 9 minutes, we meet one of the main character's daughter. Not his daughter, not Ryu's daughter, but an old man's daughter. We're never giving a real name on the old man anyway. I'm getting ahead of myself, right? We meet this girl called Fuka, right? And my god, Fuka has one of the worst voice actors ever, and one of the worst romantic lines I've ever heard. Would you like to borrow my bucket? It's not that type of bucket, so don't worry. She just thought Ryu was thirsty, and he had some good old-fashioned alcohol on hand to stop him from getting dehydrated. That always works, right, Ryu, mate? Spirit of the true fighter. Get some gin in you. Anyway, right. So after we meet Fuka, he basically just goes back to where his old master was training him in a training ground. He meets Akuma, or Goki, should I say. Basically. And what happens after that is he wakes up, yeah, cause you killed my master, you want some, and then he wakes into a dream, and then this old man appears, right, and this old man beats the crap out of Ryu, obviously, and he ends up living with him, so he can train with him, so he can not end up like Akuma, because Akuma back in the past, he was using something called the dark Hado, or as the Dark Hado, which is basically the Dark Hadoken powers or whatever. Although they don't call it Hado, they call it Hado in the American version, the Dark Hado. But it's Hado, the Dark Hado. But pronunciation aside, anyway, Ryu goes to live with this old man and Fuka, and basically, yeah, not much really happens. It's quite disappointing, not to mention Fuka's voice actor is terrible, but Ryu's no better. I mean, they have a brief conversation about what food they're gonna eat. Yeah, great. And how Ryu's angsty that he's not training, because he's planning to fight Akuma, also known as Goki. but he was called Akuma in Street Fighter Alpha, so they should have just called him Akuma instead of Gogi, so I wouldn't have to keep swapping between the two. That's the same character anyway, but just saying, that's another complaint. Anyway, there's this scene where Ryu talks to her about her family and about his family, and the acting is so terrible. They're like, my father died. All I've had is my grandfather. And Ryu's like, well, my parents died when I was little, and it's just really terrible acting. And then we're introduced to the only saving grace, the only good actor in this movie, the character the person who played Sakura. Now I don't know her voice actor, but I know she was in Gurren Lagann. I know she was in Catherine, as Catherine with a K. And I also know her, she was in Tales of Vesperia as Rita Mortio. So yeah, Sakura is the only good voice actor in this thing. I mean, the old man voice was just cliche. Oh yeah, and I also forgot to mention that you're probably wondering why I didn't say Goken. Goken's voice actor wasn't that good, was good because he continued his work. Goken's not in it for very long. In fact, like I said, he pretty much dies in like 9 minutes and then only has like a couple lines later on. So Goken, you've got a great voice actor, but man, were you underused for a 45-minute film. You're just there and then you're dead. So anyway, we actually have a good voice actress who can actually voice Sakura pretty well, and the two fight. Of course, I might not have mentioned this before, but the art style is just terrible. I mean, Street Fighter Alpha, that had big noses, and the noses were a bit of a distraction, but man, it looked like a Street Fighter film. It felt like a Street Fighter film. Street Fighter Generations, nah, didn't feel like a Street Fighter film to me, and the soundtrack wasn't that interesting. But anyway, right, back to the plot and the big finale. Yeah, because it's not that long. So anyway, Ryu decides to go fight Gogi, but Ken Master shows up. Yeah, because Ken Masters was the person who sent Sakura to keep an eye on him, to stop Ryu from fighting. And can I just say, in Street Fighter Alpha again, he was voiced by Steve Bloom, and he did a wonderful performance. But the person who voiced Ken in Generations, I'm sorry mate, you had none of his personality or charm. It was a very dry and boring performance, and I'm like, oh god. Mind you, at least unlike Fuka's voice actor, at least I don't think I've heard you in anything else. I'm only saying that because Fuka's voice actor was in When They Cry. You could have been good in other things. She wasn't. Take it as a compliment. So yeah, not Steve Bloom does a terrible performance as Ken. And then we get to the final battle scene. Oh right. Oh yeah, also before that, Ryu takes a bit of a swig of his alcohol, but he spits it out because he can't handle it. Anyway, the final battle is a real big disappointment. Because in the first film we had tension, we had high stakes, we had creepy science experiments, we had a lot more Street Fighter characters, not the ones just focusing on Ryu like Ken Masters and Sakura. And Fuka's not a Street Fighter character, and the old man are also not Street Fighter characters. And Goken was actually just dead in Alpha, but he appeared in Generations. Not very long though. Anyway, the finale of Street Fighter Alpha. A guy gets his hands blown off. These? Doesn't have these anymore. He was using the powers of evil and he was defeated in Street Fighter Alpha. Generations finale, meh. Quite dull, not entertaining. Akuma just gets a scratch on him, also known as Gogi. Oh, and did I forget to mention, there's two plot holes in this film. One, Ryu and Sakura never met. Because in Street Fighter Alpha, she doesn't know who Ryu is. And in Generations, it's like, yo Ryu, this is the first time we've ever met. But if Generations is meant to be a prequel to Alpha, yeah, that's pretty stupid. You know what I mean? She couldn't have met him in Generations if she doesn't know who he is in Alpha. And apparently Ryu and Akuma have magic blood. Yeah, the whole evil Dark Hado thing. It's not something you can learn like in Street Fighter Alpha, which follows the continuity. No, magic blood, because as we all know, everything's down to genetics, and the only way you're going to learn the power of the devil is if you have magic blood. What a load of gibberish. So the finale of Alpha is quite a boring film. The old man dies, and then Ryu, who realizes that he loves Fuka, must be because of that gin he had, then decides to leave her alone and defeats the evil Goken before that. I've said that out before that, but my god, was it a boring film. So I give Street Fighter Generations 3 Hadoukens out of 10. The art style didn't appeal to me, the story has too many plot holes, and it's overall just a boring film with bad voice acting. Street Fighter Alpha, I recommend you watch that at least once, it was a good film, but Generations, no. Sadly, Capcom is a lot like Generations now, and not like Alpha. Yeah, the company's kinda shit. Bye.